Hello, my name is Dusty Monk. Welcome to another episode of I'm Still Playing. So after putting up the actual DNA Beginner's Guide, a few of you asked me to do one on Demon Wedges, and I gotta say, I have to agree. Demon Wedges are another one of those systems that may look familiar to gacha players at first, but actually is pretty darn different. And it's not very well explained in the game. So with that, let's cover everything you know about Demon Wedges from the standpoint of an actual beginner. Okay, so what are Demon Wedges? Well, Demon Wedges are, in short, basically the equipment that you have in this game. In other games, for instance, in Zenith Zone Zero, these would be disk drives, that sort of thing, right? So they're the things that you equip to make your character better, to shape your character in a particular way. When you're talking about builds in Duet Night Abyss, you're essentially talking about your collection of Demon Wedges. So here, for instance, I wouldn't go so far as to call this a build, but this is the screen where you slot all your Demon Wedges, and you can see they have, various characteristics. But essentially, like I said, what Demon Wedges are their mods. They're the things that you equip to make your character better. And it's not just your character either, by the way. Demon Wedges go on your weapons for your melee weapon, right? They go on your ranged weapon. So here's my ranged weapon, right? They'll even go on your consonant weapons. So in short, pretty much everything you collect in the game in terms of character and weapons can be upgraded with a Demon Wedge. Okay, so one thing that I do want to mention before we go too much further in our beginner's guide for Demon Wedges is that honestly, you don't need to worry about them. I know that's kind of like you didn't come all the way here for me to tell you that you don't need to worry about them. But in truth, in the very beginning part of the game, certainly like as you're making your way through the story, you can really just kind of slap on any collection of Demon Wedges and waffle stomp your way through the story content and not have any difficulty at all. Like seriously, I have not even touched a build for this character. What I did essentially was I said remove all, and I said okay, and then auto equip. And then I've also upgraded a few of these things, right, to give them some slight improvements. But this is good enough to get through the vast majority of the story content. It really is. And when you go to your weapon, Blade Amber Glow, same way, if I remove all, say confirm, and auto equip, we are good to go. I am going to go into depth this term to talk about the wedges themselves and how they work. But in seriousness, at the very beginning to mid part of the game, I'm like level 39, right? So I'm barely scratched the surface of the game. But certainly through all the content I've been so far, I haven't even had to think about my Demon Wedge build. What you do want to think about is make sure that your characters are leveled, right? So you want to make sure that each character is, sort of as high as she can possibly be for the particular level that you are. And that your AI companion characters are, see, I need to level mine up a little bit, but there should be about 2/3 of what your main character is. So just keep those AI companions leveled up, keep your main character leveled up, keep those weapons leveled up, okay, as much as you can, and then you won't have any problem with the story content. Okay, so Demon Wedges themselves, the first thing you should probably know about them is they do have a rarity or quality level, right? So you can see I've got gray, green, blue, purple. In fact, if you want to go down here and you look at quality, these are all the qualities that are white, green, blue, purple, golden. And they go from better to worse. And now quality not only affects the relative worth of the Demon Wedge, but also how you acquire it. In fact, the way that you acquire golden wedges is completely different than the way you acquire all the rest of the wedges in the game. Also, their tolerance cost. And we'll go into what their tolerance cost is here in just a little bit. But just so you know, yeah, they have a rarity or quality level. And the better the quality, the more the tolerance cost, but the better the characteristics are for that particular wedge. Additionally, Demon Wedges come in collections. So let me show you here. If we go to the casket and we look at our Demon Wedge display, you can see these collections, basically Typhon, Typhon 2, Griffin 1, and then within each collection there are sets. And the sets are a bit arbitrary, right? So this is a Typhon 1, 2 set, this is a Typhon 2 set, and there are many sets within various particular collections. So just so you know, let me show you real quick. Go into here, and we go to filter, and if you scroll down here and we filter on collection, okay? So you can see there are 21 different collections, 7 rows, 3 of each. These are the various collection types that appear for all your Demon Wedges. And then within the various collections, there are sets. Like I said, the sets are kind of arbitrary. For instance, you have 2 sets here, Typhon 1 and Typhon 2, and these are all exactly the same. They all basically have attack, basically the prime characteristic, attack, HP, and defense, but they're for different elements. And the Typhon 1 is all green, and then the Typhon 2 is all blue. And you might be thinking, oh, okay, so each successive set is just an upgrade in rarity. No, they're completely different. For instance, if you go down here and you look at the Typhon Anemo set, right, the Typhon Lumino set, these are all different because they have different effects associated with them, even though they're all prime. But if you go down and you look at, say, Sphinx, well then, each of these Sphinx have a completely different effect and different characteristics associated with them within the set. So the long and the short of it is that you can't really draw much conclusions about the sets themselves, except that they exist and they're there for you to collect. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. However, though, I do want to call attention to the keywords. Because when you're first looking at these collections and sets and all these wedges, it can be pretty damn intimidating. But once you kind of understanding the naming convention a little bit, then you kind of say, oh, okay, I'm beginning to get it. So each demon wedge is named with a particular keyword. So for instance, all the ones here in Typhon have the keyword prime. And what prime means is that it gives bonuses on attack, HP, and defense. And then, like these are keywords down here, blaze means plus attack. Nirvana means plus hit points. Blessing means plus shield. And they use the keywords consistently throughout. So once I get down here and I see, oh, this thing has blaze and blessing, I already know right away that it's got plus attack and plus shields without even having to click on it. And look, there it is, plus attack, plus shields, because I've learned what blaze and blessing, what those keywords mean. That's kind of really the key thing to understand. Once you start understanding what these keywords mean, prime means attack, HP, and defense, and uplift means the effect increases damage dealt by you and your teammate by 11%, then you can start to kind of grok the categorization of the demon wedges a lot better. One special thing I want to say about Serenity, the keyword Serenity. If you watch any sort of other video or go to Reddit, you'll know that Serenity is sort of the godlike characteristic right now. And the reason is because it restores additional sanity by 7 for you and your teammates every 3 seconds. And sanity is huge in this game. And the reason for that is that because skill damage just vastly overshadows weapon damage right now. I'd say 90% of your damage comes from your skills, with 10% of it coming from your weapons. I'm making those statistics up right out of my ass, but it really is skill damage vastly overshadows weapon damage. And the only limiter on skill damage is how much sanity you have. So things that increase your sanity, or even better, something that increases your sanity regen rate is going to be fantastic. So yeah, if you get nothing else from this video, understand that Serenity is godlike. Okay, so now that you have an idea about all of the various collections and sets and how they're named, hopefully this screen here, the casket with all the demon wedge display, is a little bit less intimidating. Okay, so let's talk about equipping demon wedges. Now I'm just going to focus on the character, but it's the same for melee weapons and ranged weapons. Really the only difference between how you treat these things is how they're acquired, how the various wedges are acquired. But for characters, so you start by clicking on the giant red demon wedge button down here. And here's the collection of things that you slot, right? So you've got up to a grand total of 8 slots plus a center slot. And there's nothing much to it, right? You right click on it to get rid of it, and you left click on it and drag it in there to drop it in there. Here's the thing. There are a couple of things to be aware of. So first of all, see this big value in the middle is tolerance, all right? Think of tolerance as your encumbrance weight for your demon wedges. And every demon wedge in the upper right-hand corner has a weight. And the sum total of all the weights of the demon wedges can't exceed your tolerance level. Some things to know about tolerance level is essentially the higher the rarity, the more the tolerance level is for that one. So Phoenix's Nirvana has a tolerance level of 6. Whereas Phoenix's Nirvana of the gray version has a tolerance level of 2. And additionally, when you upgrade them, like I've upgraded this guy to 3 out of 5 times, and he has a tolerance level of 13. So the more you upgrade them, the more they cost, and the higher quality level, the more they cost. One thing about this one in the middle, it's kind of special. Let me just right click on that. So this is called the core slot, and only certain kinds of demon wedges can go in the core slot. And the way you know that is by the star in the upper edge of the demon wedge. And if you try to put something else in the core slot, right, it says, no, you can't do that. It's the wrong type. So you want to look at, and feathered serpents, I think all the feathered serpents are the core slot versions. And the nice thing about, the feathered serpent is that you can see by slotting this, my tolerance cap goes up by 17. Yeah, you want to look for things that increase your tolerance cap so you can equip higher level wedges. And you got to be careful when you're leveling up your wedges and in selecting higher level rarity types, because you might go over your tolerance level. That's really all there is about tolerance. So there are a couple other mechanics here at play that I want to mention. You'll notice down here that some of my wedges have clash across them. In fact, let's take a look at the weapon. I've got more clashes here. The reason that they clash, that I can't equip this, is that you cannot equip 2 wedges with the same name in the same build, on the same piece of equipment or on the same character. So I've already got Trammel, Crusher, and Impetus right here already equipped. So that's why I can't equip these, even though they have a different rarity. They're not allowed to be equipped on the same build because they have the exact same name. There is one exception to this, though, the Covenanter set. Everything in the Covenanter set has the effect of once upgraded to +5, this demon wedge can be equipped in multiples. There is one other mechanic at play here that I need to touch on before we move on, and that is the notion of track shifting, which is really just a god-awful name for slot affinity. So here's how it works. As you start getting blue and purple levels and getting up higher level in terms of demon wedges, you'll notice some of them have a little symbol beside their cost. That is essentially the track type that particular wedge is associated with. Here are the various track types. There are 4 symbols down here. Now, the important thing to understand here is these symbols don't really mean anything. It's just a way to name the track. So you got flame track, moon track, diamond track, and I don't know what is this, egg track maybe, in any event. But here's the thing. At around level 35 or so, trial level 35, you're going to unlock the ability to shift tracks. And what that means is that you can change the slot affinity for particular slots. So for instance, you look at my trammel slot here, it basically is already saying I've got a moon item currently equipped in this particular slot. And if I want to, I could spend one of these track shift modules and then basically select this, select the moon that I wanted to give it to. And you'll notice when I select the moon track that I want to use, oh, hey, it dropped the cost of that particular wedge by half. And that's what slot affinity gives you. When you set particular slots to a particular kind of affinity, then any wedges that you put within that slot that have the same affinity will be half cost. Conversely, any wedges that you put in that slot that have a different affinity will have a greater tolerance cost. So you have to be really careful about sort of dedicating a particular slot. You really don't want to mess with this until you get much higher in the game. And the reason is that setting one of these slots to this particular affinity requires you use these track shift modules, and these are pretty darn hard to come by. They're extremely lengthy to forge, they take a lot of materials, they don't drop very often, there's not many things in the game that produce them. In short, these are pretty precious. Like if I were to set this to the diamond, you can see now that particular slot would cost more because I have a wedge slotted in that slot that is a different affinity than the one that I was going to shift the track to. So just to recap, you click on Adjust Slot Track, you select a particular slot that you want to modify, you select the track that you want to set it to, and then you click Confirm. It's going to burn one of these resources, and from that moment forward, you can also remove it by using this, right? From that moment forward, that particular slot is going to give you lower cost for wedges of the same affinity and greater cost for wedges of different affinities. Not too hard really to grok once you kind of understand. It's just some of the worst terminology in the world, like adjust slot track. Like how about set slot affinity? You know, I don't know. In any event, that's that mechanic. You want to be aware of it. It's not explained too well in the game. It's not too hard to understand once you get it, but it does cost some pretty expensive resources, so have a care when you're trying to use it. Okay, so now that we've talked about how you equip the demon wedges and how they work, let's talk about how you acquire them. There's essentially 3 different ways to acquire demon wedges. So if you come up here to combat, and you go to commissions, essentially, first way is to run Noctoyager manual commissions. All right, and you can see here are all the demon wedges for the various kinds of missions that you run. These are very cheap, they're very quick to run, they don't take a lot of time, but your rewards are RNG based, and so you may find yourself grinding quite a while before you want to get one of these particular missions, right? Like if I'm trying to get Fafnir's Furious Blast, I go and run this mission, but it may take me a number of times before Fafnir's Furious Blast actually drops. But again, you use it every day, and they're pretty straightforward, easy way to build your collection. The other way is through covert commissions. And like covert commissions, these begin by going to the store, going to covert commissions, clicking demon wedges, and just like the character covert missions, you buy a secret letter for the particular demon wedge that you want to try to get, and which I can't do yet. But the nice thing about running covert commissions is that the reward pool is limited to these things. So you still may not get the particular one that you want, but you have a pretty good chance of getting it, at least a better chance you have than with the Noctoyager manager missions. And even if you don't get it, you're going to get Glamule Globals, which you need for forging demon blueprints later on. Finally, the way that gold wedges are acquired is that they unlock at level 40, which I'm literally level 39, so I can't show them to you yet. But you have to forge the gold demon wedges using a blueprint that you acquire through running a higher level mission. That's a little bit beyond the scope of this particular beginner's manual, so I'll maybe do a different guide about that later. But for now, just know that the third way is forging them through materials acquired and blueprints acquired with higher level missions. Finally, I want to talk about the Demon Wedge casket a little bit. I've been using this off and on throughout the night. So as you can see here, this is essentially a giant Pokedex, right? And the game wants you to collect one of every kind of these things that is available out there. And there are tons. The one thing they do to kind of help jumpstart you in this process is to provide you with these Demon Wedge quests. And the quests are nice. I went through and I pretty much did all of them the other night because I'm like, oh, hey, this is cool. The quests offer you trial XP. They offer secret love letters, different kinds of rewards like Carmine globules. So it's really pretty sweet. For each one, if you don't have the particular one yet in that quest, you click it. You say, oh, I go to Blessed Deacon Hell, I sell. It takes you right to the thing. And those are the things you're going to collect. You confirm selection and away you go. And again, because it's RNG based, you may not get it on that particular run, but you just keep running it over and over. and the rewards are really nice, and it passes the time really quickly. So I just want to recommend going through these Demon Wedge quests, especially at the early level. It'll build up your Pokedex of Demon Wedges pretty quickly, get you a nice base to start running from, and it's fun. It's just kind of a great, kind of a fun thing to do. I already talked about the Demon Wedge display. This is essentially the entire Pokedex of all the Demon Wedges in the game, organized by sets. And if you get a chance, don't skip on the matching tips. This is essentially telling you the kinds of Demon Wedges that are useful for each of your characters that you have, and also for your melee weapons that you've collected. You can tell I've spent zero time paying attention to this thing, but it is actually useful. You could do worse than to collect these things and equip them on your character as a starting build, or you could go get it from GameMate just like everybody else does. All right, so that's going to be a wrap for my actual beginner's guide to Demon Wedges. If you did find this useful, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really helps the channel out. And press that bell notification thingy as well. Until next time, though, I hope you're enjoying Duet Night Abyss, but whatever you're playing, play hard and cheers.